In today's rapidly changing world, the geospatial industry stands at the forefront of transformation. From traditional mapping methods to cutting-edge digital technologies, the evolution is profound. This shift not only revolutionizes how we map our world, but also how we interact with it. Beyond technical advancements, the integration of geospatial data holds vast economic implications. Businesses worldwide are harnessing its power for market analysis, infrastructure development, resource management, and disaster response, among other critical activities. This mature use of geospatial information isn't just a trend, it's becoming a cornerstone of economic growth, innovation, and competitiveness globally. By reshaping industries and enabling informed decision-making, the geospatial transition is driving progress and resilience in economies around the world, showcasing the transformative power of spatial data in shaping our future.
Well, I can assure you that our next speaker is just amazing. I heard her once, and I was so impressed and influenced. Let's welcome Judith Proyer, First VP and Vice Chair, Exim Bank, United States. Judith. Judith is appointed by President Biden, and she is the first Vice President and Vice Chair of the Export-Import Bank. With 25 years of leadership in multinational businesses, she specializes in corporate communications, public affairs, and business development. And she is really very interested to know more about space and geospatial ecosystem. So, floor is yours.
Thank you, Sanjay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here. Thank you, Sanjay. And to the team, it's always a pleasure to talk about XM financing solutions for the space and the satellite world. All right, so everybody knows this guy. I feel like I need to establish a little bit of street cred here. So I work for the U.S. Export-Import Bank of the United States, but I have 20 years in the satellite industry. And while I'm not as old as this guy, and everybody remembers this guy probably, Yuri Gagarin. Is that still a thing? April 12th? Yuri Gagarin Day? We used to have big parties back in the day when I worked at ComSat. But I am indeed one of those dinosaurs because I'm from the geo-satellite world. There were no LEO constellations. It was all about very big satellites that were in geosynchronous orbit, providing L-band, C-band, KU-band was a new thing for me. There were no LEO constellations. So anyway, things have changed, I would say. For me, if I think of today's world, the new SAT world, reusable launch vehicles, 3D printing, commercial space stations, commercial apps for what we're talking about earlier, that here at the GWF, but GIS, GPS, Earth observation. Over the next few days, I'm really excited to learn a little bit more and to see how we might be able to help you, because this certainly is a sea change for the industry. So just a little bit about XM Bank. Many of you probably really don't know who we are. We're the official export credit agency of the United States government. We're an important tool in the federal government's trade toolbox. But I like to think of us, with only 500 people, as that little engine that could. We were established in 1934 by President Roosevelt during the Great Depression with a goal, and I quote, to aid in the financing and to facilitate exports and imports and the exchange of commodities between the U.S. and other nations. And so XM has played a critical role in fostering economic opportunities for U.S. companies and its workers. In fact, the first transaction was 1935 for almost $4 million to Cuba for silver ingots. So, my, how things have changed for the US. If we fast forward to today, 2024, this is a big year for us, 90 years in business, supporting the financing of US goods and services for international buyers. So if you want to learn a little bit more, our annual conference is in Washington, D.C. on June 6th and 7th, and we hope to see you there. So yes, indeed, we're still around 90 years later, and with the same simple mission, to facilitate exports, and in doing so, to support U.S. job growth. That's been our simple mission from the beginning. And we achieve that by providing short-term, medium-term, and long-term financing to international buyers of U.S. exports, export credit insurance, letters of credit, domestic CapEx for expansion of manufacturing facilities in the United States. And we don't compete with the private sector. So we like to say that we filled the gaps when they cannot or will not finance, whether because of sector limitations or risky markets, or other liquidity issues like a global pandemic. In fact, we work very closely with trusted financial institutions like BNP Paribas, Citibank, JP Morgan, Standard Chartered, PEFCO, and others. And we work with them by providing them with EXIM-backed guarantees to those loans. So if you think of the benefits and why EXIM financing, well, we provide comprehensive guarantees that cover up to 100% of political and commercial risks. We're open in 177 countries, and we support virtually all sectors of an economy, with a few exceptions. And we have no transaction size limits. Things that come to the board are over 25 million, but often we finance as little as 500,000 for US exporters, and the largest project I've ever signed off on was for $4.7 billion. We can be patient capital, which I think is super important. And again, I'm talking about the hardware aspects of the satellite industry, which are instruments that are facing new opportunities these days and new rebirths because of the reduction in size of the hardware that's required. But patient capital means that we can wait for revenue generation before we expect repayment. And we can also support local costs. So co-financing, parallel financing with fellow ECAs. We have 18 ECA partners around the world that we can co-finance with. And of course, parallel financing with commercial banks and some of the banks that I mentioned a little bit earlier. And in the room with me today, taking pictures right there, turn around and wave to the crowd, Matthew, is Matthew McCombs, my colleague from Washington. He's one of our underwriters, so for your very specific questions, and I hope there are some, we'll be here the next few days and you can reach out to Matthew. So, why is it a really good idea to have EXIM involved? We really do create a halo effect. We're known for our solid due diligence and our underwriting principles, and we are comfortable taking risk. That is our business. We are established not to compete, as I mentioned, with the private sector, but to complement their efforts. So this often, with EXIM involvement, often helps pull in other commercial lenders to a transaction. We can finance up to 85% of an export contract value associated with satellite infrastructure, from launch services to on-orbit servicing to flight missions. And we can finance more associated costs too, including software fees or other related services. Construction phase financing for funds progress can be made to suppliers. And repayment periods are around 10 years, give or take, and sometimes more, following the construction deployment phase drawdown, as well as grace periods. And one new thing that we have that may be interesting for this audience, certainly for the US crowd, is for the first time in XM's history, we can now support the full life cycle of an export, because that is our mission. We have to facilitate exports and in turn support US job creation. So for the first time, we're now offering domestic financing for the build out of manufacturing facilities or new testing equipment or lab equipment, as long as a certain portion of what is manufactured in the United States is designated for export. So, I love this slide. What exactly has XM done for the US space industry? Let me tell you, we have been there from the beginning, and if this slide doesn't show that, nothing does. So in 1960s, it was Earth station build-outs. In 1975, our first satellite was financed in Indonesia, the Palapa one. In 1985, Brazil sat. And then in 2009, the first financing of digital payload for Avanti Helix, which is a UK firm, and they launched from French Guiana. But it's really been in the last decade where we've been very active. 22 transactions, over $5 billion in authorizations for both corporates and sovereigns. And in 2014, with Asia Broadcast Satellite, ABS, we financed not only the 3 Boeing 702 SPs, but it was the first time that XM financed a SpaceX launch in 2015. Again, remaining true to our mission, this transaction alone supported 4,000 US jobs. So what trends are we seeing? Really, it's been since 2016. We've seen a big industry shift, and being in this room, exemplifies that. There are very few one-off GEOs being launched. There's an uptick in LEOs and Earth observation for both large and smaller constellations. And the need to track objects in space as skies get crowded becomes increasingly important. So in sum, this industry is experiencing a huge paradigm shift. And XM has been exposed to a new set of borrowers. These are not your mother's satellite ventures anymore. And so we've had to adjust. So I'm so glad to see all of you here today. I'm grateful, as always, to talk about the opportunities with XM financing options if you're buying American manufactured space-related products and services. So we can help reduce the risk for you. We can help weatherproof your company by taking that risk on ourselves, because we do have an appetite for it and a balance sheet to support it, with a lending cap of $135 billion and current exposure at about $35 billion. We have plenty of room to grow. We have experienced, talented staff, Matthew representing one of those folks here with me in Rotterdam. But I hope you will pursue a conversation with XM. I know everyone doesn't always think about this side of the government, and just to acknowledge our U.S. head of delegation, Ms. Deirdre Bishop. I'm honored to be part of the U.S. government as well. But we're one of those tiny little agencies that people don't often think of. And we're on the commercial side. And I'm pretty sure that's why Sanjay wanted me here today, was to talk a little bit about the commercial aspects of what we can do. So with that, I hope you'll pursue a conversation with XM about your financing needs. If you have any, we're here to answer questions. And we can do that for either US production or international buyers. So thank you so much.
Isn't it amazing? Thank you very much, Judith, for such a exciting address. And it aligns very well with what we are doing here in this event. We have a US as a strategic partner, we have a US pavilion, and this morning we had an India-EU Business Summit, which was attended by more than 100 people, and we had half-day summit charting out the paths of collaboration, and and your presence is not only encouraging for the space and geospatial industry, either definitely I wanted you to have a bit of more exposure to this community, and they should talk to you and you should talk to them. But I think the national governments who are actually looking at space policies, They should actually take this lesson and learning and go forward to their national banks and talk to them about creating such environment of funding mechanisms which can give more, I think, sustainable and I think progressive partnerships and entrepreneurship. And I must say that there are quite a few banks today in this room and chartered accountants, so your address was very helpful to them as well. I've been trying to convince them. Thank you very much. With this, we go to our next speaker, Ron Bisio. Ron Bisio is a cartographer by education. He is a Bachelor of Cartography and he is Master's in Regional Planning, and he has second Master's in MBA, Business Administration. He has worked with Esri for many years. He's been with Trimble for 20 plus years, and he manages the larger portion of the Trimble business, which is probably almost $2 billion plus. And he has a very big role to play in the geospatial industry. Let's hear from him about geospatial transition and the economy. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Sanjay. Good afternoon. And while I wait for my slides, I would like to thank Sanjay, as always, and Sanjay's team for putting on another great event. And so our dear friend Sanjay asked me to speak about the convergence of hardware, software, and data. I'm going to assume that just about everybody in this room is somehow associated with one of those three. And I'm going to put it in the context of an industry that really needs our help. And that industry, in the context of the world economy, is construction, which accounts for, in 2022, 14.2% of the world economy is focused on the construction industry. So it's an incredible industry for us to take this convergence of hardware, data, and software and apply it to. And why? Because this is an industry that really needs our help. There's some absolutely staggering numbers up on this slide. If you take a look, this industry completes about 11% of its projects on schedule. Completes about 9% of its projects on budget. Can you imagine your performance review if you walked in with your manager and said, yeah, I'm going to be on time about 11%, I'm going to be on budget about 9%. We good with that? So clearly, this is an industry that needs our help. And the ramifications of this are not just financial. 37% of the world's greenhouse gases are related to the construction and the construction industry. If we can make this industry faster and cheaper, we can improve its impact on the global climate. The other number that I found staggering and even more important to me is the number on the right. There's a 75% chance that someone in the construction industry is going to have a disabling injury at some point during their career. We have the ability to help make people safer and bring people home. That's what we want to do. And so our industry has a great ability to impact the construction industry, and they're looking for it. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to take a look at this opportunity, and I was going to put it in the context of a couple of European projects. So first one is anybody in here from France? Oh, we've got some people from France. So do you know we are only 2 months away from the start of the Paris 2024 Olympics? Literally the first time when I landed here in the Netherlands and it was so warm, I'm like, oh, that's right. Summer Olympics is coming. So there's some really impressive projects underway in France to get ready for the Olympics. So the Grand Paris Express, the railway around Paris and through Paris, is they're undergoing a massive construction projects right now. They're building out 200 kilometers of additional railway. 90% of this is going to go underground. It's going to require tunnels. It's going to require a convergence of hardware, data, and software. The contractors that are working on these projects are under immense pressure to be on budget, to be on schedule, to reduce the greenhouse impact, and to produce and to make it safe for the workers on these projects. So one of our customers, Eiffage, one of the major project leads on this, they're working with tunnel boring machines to develop some of the new lines that are being built to the south of Paris in the area of the Orly Airport. And so what they're doing is they're taking hardware, such as traditional surveying instruments, traditional scanners, and they're combining that using specific software to provide better data to the tunnel boring machines. If you've ever seen these tunnel boring machines, they're massive, massive operations, incredible cost and incredible complexity. And by bringing that data together, Eiffage is able to more effectively use those tunnel boring machines, again, helping to deliver the project on time and on budget. So again, great opportunity for those things to all come together. Another example here, we actually had a customer of ours, he actually made this quote that they could not go back to the way they were doing things before in working with the tunnel boring machine before they brought this convergence of data together. The next project here in Europe is the Küsnacht municipality in Switzerland. And I really admired what this organization did, this municipality. What they decided to do is to do a road construction project. Again, one of the biggest drivers of expense is road construction projects, road maintenance projects. They decided to pilot a project where they forced the contractors that won the project to go all digital. They wanted all of the stakeholders, the utility operators, the machine operators, the municipality itself, as well as the residents impacted by the construction, all to be stakeholders and all to have access to real-time data about the project. So the way they did this was they put this out to tender, and price was not the major factor in this tender. It was actually this ability to be all digital. Strabag of Austria, their Swiss arm, won this project, and they came in and they demonstrated how they could build an all-digital workflow for design and build, construct, and as-built right into the maintenance. The way they did this was they took traditional GNSS or Global Navigation Satellite System, they took traditional scanning, they took cutting-edge mobile mapping technology, and they put all that data together in a cloud-based common data environment. They used IFC standards to ensure that all the data was compatible, and they brought all this together so that they could then deliver to all those stakeholders that they said they were going to be able to deliver. This was an absolute requirement. They also had a GIS-based BIM model that was used as the basis for all estimating, all calculations, and all planning on the project. So this was a great example, and it was simply just a pilot project to ensure that they could go forward and do this with all of their projects that followed. The end result of this was that for all of these various stakeholders, the excavator operators, the big machines with the buckets that they're pulling, they're using for grading and for preparation of the base, they were able to improve their productivity by using 3D design models in machine control on the excavators. The utility companies were able to work with tablet-based systems and GNSS to ensure that they were working on the correct utilities in the correct locations. And the municipality officials, who were responsible for ensuring that things were staying on budget and on schedule, were constantly able to follow up on the project. Again, really impressive. But the thing I like the most about this, any of you who've ever been impacted by a road construction project in your area and you want to know when is this going to end, the residents that were impacted were able to log in and see data, up-to-date data on the project status, how it was going, and when it was going to be completed. So again, all of these stakeholders were able to benefit from this convergence of hardware, software, and data all coming together. So a couple of examples. It's really great because we come together at events like this and we all talk the talk. We understand the benefits of our technology, but for an industry like construction that really needs to be shown, it's really great to have concrete examples where we can walk into an industry and say, we are going to be able to make your work safer. We're going to be able to make it cheaper. We're going to keep you on schedule. And in the end, we're going to actually reduce the impact to the climate from the work that you're doing. And again, it's really great when we can show those tangible benefits. So I look forward to seeing everybody this evening in the exhibit hall, and thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Ron, thank you very much. You're always amazing. How do you craft your story? In fact, the construction industry is probably one of the largest consumer of the geospatial technologies, and the combination of GIS, surveying, digital twins, and BIM put together into the whole workflow of plan, design, build, and manage the infrastructure is amazing, and it's saving a lot of resources. Thank you very much for your help. Thanks. With this, I go to another very exciting, speaker, Mark Prulu. Mark, please come on the stage. Mark is the executive director of Overture's Maps Foundation, and the spirit of collaboration you can see in the genesis of this organization. Who would imagine Microsoft, Amazon, Facebook to come together and form an organization like Overture Maps Foundation and create a kind of collaborative platform for greater good of the maps? So, Mark?
Yeah, thanks very much. I'll tell you one person who didn't believe it was my boss. I worked at Facebook when we started putting it together, and I said, I'm going to make this a goal for the year. He said, you're crazy, you'll never do it. There were doubters out there. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Overture. Overture is a collaboration to build open data. We launched about 18 months ago. And one of the things that has been talked about a lot is about partnership. And this is all about partnership. It's all about people coming together to build data around a common idea. And so I want to tell you a little bit about that. And I don't know if folks know about it. The goal of Overture was really to start this nonprofit to build open map data. And what we wanted to do is build open map data that would work for applications not just now, but out into the future. And if you think back 10 years, the applications you had, and think of the data that powered those applications, now fast forward to now and think how much richer and better the applications are and how that's driven by data. And then when you fast forward another 10 years and think what's the data gonna have to be out there, it's gonna accelerate even more. And yet, the difficulty of putting together that data has become so great that we thought it was time to kind of rethink it. And so Overture was started by 4 companies, as Sanjay mentioned, AWS, Meta, Microsoft, and TomTom. Esri joined very quickly after, and over time we've grown to about 30 companies. If you look at these companies out there, one thing as I was sitting in the audience, I noticed a couple things. One was, there are some companies on that list that are or could be or might be represented by y'all out here, but there are a lot of companies that aren't represented by y'all out here. And there are companies in tech, in consumer products, and consumer applications. There's a big mapping industry out there, guys. And those folks are doing a lot of work. And I really have been pleased at the way this has come together, because I think that group can bring a lot to this group in terms of volume and some of the innovation. And this group has a lot of things that group doesn't have. Colored shirts, for one. I haven't been in a room with so many colored shirts in 3 years. It's mostly a t-shirt crowd over there. But this is a group that's come, and the common thread was everyone was interested in building data and building open map data. There were 3 things we wanted to do. I can look right there. One was, if you're going to build the best map data, you have to use all sources of map data. And so there's obviously a lot of crowdsourced data and open data. There's a lot of government open data, and we wanted to be able to use that. We wanted to use AI-generated data. Ron is somewhere out there rolling his eyes. I come from the people who are bringing you the hype of AI-generated data. We come in peace. We mean you no harm. But we're quite enthusiastic about it. But any type of data we would want to be able to use. It needs to be made high quality and have validation. Obviously, if you're going to put this stuff in the hands of people, it needs to be accurate. And it needs to be in a stable format. Two parts of this. One is schema, which unless you're a software development engineer, is a really boring topic. But the other is this thing we call GERS, because we don't have marketing people. It stands for Global Entity Reference System. It's an entity reference system. I'm going to come back to that. So we were sort of thinking about this and thinking about data. One of the things that's come up here is data is just exploding. You know, all geospatial apps are built on data, and you think about what's happened in data over the last 10 years and what's happening. And what I've seen is you have data, you build an app, the consumers use that app, then the data gets a little bit better. In a nanosecond, the consumers move into the space that's created by that better data, and then they want it to get better, whether it's more accurate, more timely, more up-to-date, and you just can't keep up. Every time the data gets better, the expectations get higher, the apps evolve, the data gets. If you think about how we collect data, and this has been mentioned several times, we used to go out and survey, but now data is coming in through sensors, right? We're all carrying phones around in our pockets. Things are happening in the world. Those sensors are being processed and the data is being updated. So there's this huge explosion in data, and that is becoming really hard for people to manage because all that data has to be brought in, it has to be processed, has to be conflated and put together. And this is really one of the problems that a lot of people saw. So let me give you just 3 examples. You know, roads are very important. It used to be sort of like, here's a road, you know, go down here, turn left, turn right. But now you want to know the speed limit. You want to know the real-time traffic. You want to get traffic-based guidance. You want to do incidents. You want to get lane level guidance. That construction thing that Ron's folks were talking about, they don't want to just push out onto the website. They want to push out to the rideshare driver and the consumer out there. They want to push that data out. There's emissions-related guidance. The cities want to push out closed roads and things like that. So all this data is getting layered on the road network. Look at places. It used to be just like, can I go find a taco or something like that? But now you want to know the hours and how did those hours change during COVID? Do they do takeout? Do they sell vegan food? Can I bring a pet? Can I bring a vegan pet? Do they have reviews? Do they have ratings? Do they have pictures? Where is it? I don't mean the centroid of the place. I mean the front door. Oh, you mean you're picking up food for delivery? You want the back door. Oh, you're a ride share? You want the place around the corner where you can drop people off safely. The lat long of a place is no longer a simple thing. And by the way, I want a reservation for tonight for 2. Building footprints. Used to be maybe the building footprint, but now it's like I need 3D level of accuracy. They want to use visual positioning. The building materials are being used for wireless reflections, plan wireless networks, or develop flood risk, or do urban heat indexes. So all this data is getting piled on these infrastructure, and it becomes harder and harder to conflate. And so that becomes a real problem for folks who are out there. So that was a problem that we sort of came to think about. It becomes hard for users because they're trying to conflate it. It also is hard for data owners because the data owners have to kind of get that data out to the market. And for all of us, it's a ton of redundant effort. And that's one of the things I think open source can work on collaborating. So that was a thought we had. We started thinking about it, and one of the things that if you think about this explosion, explosions are inherently kind of hard to wrap your head around. Explosions, if you kind of break them down into pieces, and one of the things we started seeing is the data, even though it's exploding, is built on certain themes. And so Stephen from UN mentioned the UN GGIM themes. These are 14 themes that the UN has identified as sort of key themes in geospatial. We're not doing all of these. We're doing only 4 of them, and then we added a 5th one, which is places. But these are groups of data, and as you think about the explosion of data, what you start to see is there's a fairly narrow base that's stable-ish, and mapping people always tell me nothing's stable, the world's always changing, and I get that. But it's stable-ish, right? The road network is not stable, but it's stable-ish, right? And addresses are not stable, but they're stable-ish. The real explosion is the data tied to that stable-ish base. And so the idea that we started to develop is, could we develop a base layer of open data, which was open, which was shared, which we all collaborate, which we all join in and build, and then allow the explosion of other data to be attached to it. So this is kind of my, this is about as good as my PowerPoint gets. So the idea is open base layer. So in every theme, whether it's roads or places or buildings or addresses, an open base layer. Not a highly attributed layer, but a highly complete layer. And then on top of that, assume that this industry is going to build a ton of value-added data, a bunch of value-added data that can be added onto that. And then the key part is this idea of an entity reference system. So a reference system that is tied to entities in the maps, that could be buildings or addresses or road segments, is stable and is unique. And that way, if that entity reference system is in the base map and in the value-added data, it becomes really easy to conflate. So that's the model that we're kind of pushing on. Just a couple things, if you think about base layers and think about in this concept, what do base layers need to be? One, they need to be global because the markets we play in are global. That we need base layers that cover the entire world and have a similar structure and schema and reference system. They need to be complete. They don't need to be really rich, but they do need to have all the assets or all the entities in that theme in them. And so they need to be complete. They need to be open. And this is, when you start an open source project, you kind of got to make things open. But I do think it needs to be something that is shared and that everyone works to build jointly and is open and freely available for anyone to use. And it needs to be used because ultimately the thing that a lot of these companies bring is billions, literally billions of users who can use the data. And part of our premise is the best maps are going to be the maps that are used the most. I just got the ding of death. Really quickly, the entity reference system also has some requirements. I'd say it also has to be global. It needs to be able to cover the entire world. Needs to be entity-based. There's a lot of reference systems out there. We didn't invent this idea. There's a lot of reference systems out there that reference a piece of dirt, a piece of the world, but we believe it has to be tied to the entity, to the place or the building or the thing, so it can be unique and distinct. And it too also needs to be open. It needs to be something that's not being controlled by one entity, but that's really shared across the spectrum. So that was a lightning thing. If you're totally confused and want to learn more, we are having a workshop tomorrow. So sorry, Sanjay, I didn't tell you I do a blatant sales plug, but come and see us or come talk to me and we'll be around. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. That was, again, phenomenal to see the IT perspective, how simply you crafted your story and you gave your messages to the world that how this map should be building up. So I want to have a quick round of questions or rather conversation with you all. Judith, you've been to first time to Geospatial World Forum. How do you feel like?
Microphone. I think I'm going to learn quite a bit, I hope, over the next 2 days. I'm just from the morning's conversations, I'm trying to figure out how we can provide assistance to this industry. One way is, again, we're commercial. We don't finance. If you're looking to provide services to the U.S. government, we're not for you. We're providing financing for buyers of U.S. goods and services. But I hope that maybe you will walk away from my conversation a little bit earlier with the idea of, okay, how do I pivot and look to the commercial markets for what I offer, and how can these services be used outside of government data collection, if you will? Like, how do we apply commercial application to this, and then where do I go for financing? So I'm hoping that will be my convergence today.
Wonderful.
I am not a tech genius, so it's great to hear these gentlemen speak.
Thank you very much, Judith. In fact, United States has a big export and import too in the field of geospatial. We're not yet publicly out with our findings, but I can say a bit of range where U.S. geospatial market is about $100 billion. And at the same time, U.S. also has almost 40 to $50 billion of exports on geospatial side, and almost $30 billion imports on geospatial side. That's the kind of business you are dealing with. So how do you want to respond to that?
We can help, right? I mean, we have a book that still has $100 billion of room to grow. And again, it all goes back to a very simple mission. If you are a U.S.-based company and a portion of what you're building, manufacturing, servicing, selling is for export, we can help you both domestically by facilities build out, but we can provide those international buyers as long as, a small portion, 15 for a small business, 51% U.S. content, because at the end of the day, there's an algorithm that computes the per job application for us. And, that's our mission. Everybody's got a different mission, but we're one of the business-facing organizations, agencies of the U.S. government with a pure mission.
So if you're interested to do more business with U.S., there is a person to go, find her somewhere in the conference, talk to her. Ron, how do we think that we can actually, construction is a huge market. And this is still about, I think, 3% or 4% of the construction industry is used, investment is in digital as a whole. And I think in geospatial or surveying is probably less, about 1% or so. How do you think that we can actually encourage construction companies to make more use of the technology? Because if their adoption of technology gets improved, we can save even a lot more. What you showed was great, but then we can help them save even more.
Yeah. So first off, I want to start by working in the government. You probably don't get a lot of people saying thank you. Our customers do leverage your financing, and so thank you very much for that. You appreciate the work. So how do we actually help the construction industry? That is definitely a show me industry. They want demonstration of facts, numbers, values that they can actually then take and apply. And so I think anytime we can build case studies like that, if you can take the time to actually assess how much the technology is improving, the productivity, the safety, the cost reduction, those will be the things that industry is really looking for. And I think that will help them then build that into their future plans and their future RFPs that they put out.
Thank you. Mark, you are building a lot of great quality, stuff which is ready to use, like the maps which are ready to use. How do you think that you can enrich your platform by, partnering with the governments? They all have ambitions of, making these data platforms rich and accessible and usable.
Yeah, and that was one of the main things. When we started, one of the things we said is there's a tremendous amount of government data, and as I said, our goal is to use data from, we don't care where it comes from. We want good data. So I think one of the things that we're very interested in, and I'm interested in talking about, is what government data is out there that might be a good fit. And a good fit could be open government data, which would help improve our base maps, right? Our base maps, we want to be very complete, very accurate. And if there's open government data that can make it more complete and accurate, that's super interesting to us. There's also government data that might not be open, and that can be attached, it could be open, but it doesn't have to be open, can be attached to the base map. And I think what that does is it gives a backbone, sort of an open backbone that allows a lot of different data to be attached to it. So that's what we'd like. The other part of the question is what would a government get back? And this is a little hypothetical, but the one thing I think we can do is I think we can take data and put it into the hands of literally billions of people. Literally billions of people. I'm not like, doing that. Literally billions of people. And we do believe that the more the data is used, the better it gets. So there's a possibility that by taking that data and putting it in, having it used by billions of people, we can develop really robust feedback loops that tell you where that data is right and where maybe the world has changed. Don't know how we're going to do that, but that's something that we've thought about a lot and hopefully would be a good exchange of value.
Thank you very much. With this, I think we are left with 12 seconds, so we can conclude this session. It has been great hosting you all at this panel, which is a very broad range of speakers coming from banks to having an exposure to the construction world, and then getting into the open data world. Thank you very much. Let's give them a...
Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you.